Alright, so I'm back and I now have audio. So this kind of pisses me off because I just disassembled the whole watch, and I was talking about the various components of the watch, but you're just going to have to look, I guess. And so I just took off the main plate here, and as you saw, and I was just describing the banking pins, as you can see it later, but the banking pins are slightly off. They're not symmetrical, and that's why I was zooming in on that, and they're kind of cocky, but the watch seemed to be running okay. So what I'll do is clean all this, and then I use a little bit of Rodico to put the pallet fork back in place. So, and what I do, as I said earlier, is I take a bunch of photos to make sure that if there's some strange arrangement in this watch, that I don't forget how it goes together. So that's the main plate. I really wish the audio was on earlier, because I was kind of describing the disassembly of the watch, and I did a pretty good job describing it all, chatting away. But anyway, I'll start from here again. And you saw me take the balance cock off earlier, and you saw me take the plate that's over the mainspring off, and then the mainspring, the barrel should come straight up if I'm lucky. Seems to be stuck in here, but I'm going to turn this off for a second so I can have a look. So before I take the barrel out, I'm just going to remove these gears. I just took the escapement out 2 seconds ago, and I'm going to just grab that pallet fork. That's the pallet fork, and with the pallet fork jewels. And I can't really remove this until I figure out how to remove this barrel. So I think that there might be some nonsense down here on the other side of the watch that I need to take out, because the barrel seems to be affixed in there, which doesn't make any sense. So it may have to do with the fact that it's a motor barrel that's causing me some issues, which means there's a gear under here that's part of this barrel that needs to be addressed. So there's another gear just fell out of my hand. So see that? You turn a knobby and the gear falls out. That's how it works. So yeah. Yeah, this is strange. I think this barrel, it's kind of stuck in here, so it might need some convincing, which may need gotta get a small toothpick and then push on the other end. So to remove the motor barrel, I actually need to remove this plate here, because the plate will hold the gearing part of the motor barrel in place. So this beastie is a bit new to me. I've replaced some other type of barrels, but I don't know if I've ever tackled one of these jobby doos. So I'm going to just remove these screws here, because the more screws you remove, the bigger chances that things are gonna fall out. so I figured just keep removing screws until the barrel falls out, and just be very cautious, that's all. So there we go. So now I suspect I should be able to edge the barrel out, and there we go. Look at that. So the barrel with the plate intact comes out like this, like so. This thing is heavy actually. And there's the other gears in the bottom. Let me just drop this in place here and grab the barrel. And there's the motor barrel. So this bugger is a pain in the butt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to oil the motor barrel. I'm going to oil that motor barrel nicely so it's nice and lubricated, but it looks clean as heck. So another thing is, what I don't do, again, if the spring's not broken and the gears are good and the barrel's good, I don't fart with it as well. So this thing here, it provides the power for the watch. So this is like, I make sure that all the gears here are clean. So I'll clean that with Rodico, and I'll oil. You don't oil the gears. You don't put oil in the gears, but you oil the pinions so they rotate freely, and then you're good to go. So too bad I wasn't chatting earlier about all this stuff, right? I had the friggin' voice off basically my camera was looking at something else. So there's the center wheel I just took out, and that's a jeweled center wheel as well, so I got all the wheels sort of stacked up on the side there. And so there's the watch basically stripped down. Now, like I said, this thing looks really clean. So again, the keying mechanisms here won't be, there won't be an issue with the keying mechanisms here unless they're super oily and super dirty, and they're not. So what I do is I put a little bit of oil here, and these things are high tension, so the oil is a thicker type of oil that you put in there. It's like a grease, and then you it allows for these gears to move. So these are the gears that you do put a little bit of oil or grease in, and then these you have to allow for this to move back and forth, right, on the spring into the right position. If you take that apart, which I've done many times on other pocket watches, you end up having to put the screws back. I usually take close-up pictures of all this so I can make sure everything goes back into the proper place. This little screw here, I'm not sure where this comes from, but there's got to be something here that might have fell out. I don't know. This here has got to be here for a reason, so I have to determine what was here. So didn't think anything was there. I'll look at the pictures I took earlier to see if there's something there, but anyway, that is a screw for sure. This here actually might be part of this gear here. So this might actually catch this as it comes up as a spring or something. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'll take a look at the picture later on and see what that is. So that's the plate there. So when I clean these jewels, what I do is I dip, because the jewels all are basically on this side, I can dip this down into the lighter fluid, and I can clean these jewels out nicely without having to drown the whole watch and get lighter fluid into here. I've done this before and it dries out nicely, but if there's no need to do it, I don't do it. So that's the plate right there. So now it's time to do a little bit of cleaning, and I'll show you how. Okay, now it's time for some cleaning. So what I use to clean the watch movements is good old-fashioned lighter fluid. So I can use benzene, naphtha, whatever, but anyway, lighter fluid is my choice. This stuff evaporates really fast, and once you clean a watch part, then you lay it down on this special type of paper that just absorbs all of the moisture from the watch. So try not to breathe this because it's probably toxic to breathe. Though I got a fan at the door right now, and I've got the window open. So what I do is I drop these guys into the swimming pool, and I'll clean these things by hand, one at a time or two at a time. So I just drop them all in, and you just have to be gentle. So I'll drop these three big gears in, right, which are the center gear. So the first gear is called the barrel mainspring. Second gear is the center one, right, and then they're ratioed down to get minutes, hours, minutes, and seconds. And then it goes to the escapement, which is the one with the little tiny boots, and then the escapement basically turns, and the pallet fork releases the escapement, and it releases based on the speed of the balance, and which is regulated by the hairspring. That's part of the balance. So all automatic watches pretty well work the same, unless it's a tourbillon watch or one of these crazy $100,000 Swiss watches, and they work slightly different. So what I do is I just clean these gears up with the lighter fluid, and after I've cleaned them up with the lighter fluid, then I take the Rodico and I make sure that the tip is good and the gears don't have any crap in them. And then I also, after I've done that, I use some pith wood, and I just jam the gears into the end of the pith wood to make sure there's no leftovers on the end of the pinion, because the top and bottom pinions or pivots, actually I shouldn't say pinion, top and bottom pivots it's essential to have them 100% clean, and and that way the watch operates perfectly. So there, these are cleaned now. So put this brush somewhere where I'm not going to lose it. So once I've cleaned the end of these, I grab the gear, make sure I don't grab it anywhere where it would scratch it or affect it. These tweezers are non-magnetic. They're brass tweezers. They're kind of the best ones you can get for this kind of stuff. So there we go. There's the this gear seems to want to hold on to all the freaking lighter fluid in between the holes. So so you get other people to blow on that. So I'm just going to let those rest for a few seconds, and I'm going to clean the escapement here. Right, that's this little tiny wheel right there. And the same thing, I just rinse this off. I use a brush to clean it, and then I let it dry. And then after it dries, I'm going to also make sure the pivots are clean and all that stuff. And so if there's a problem with the pivots, though, if there's a corrosion or something in the pivot, I purchased the J-Cot tool, and I put a video online on how to use a J-Cot tool. So I had to figure this crap out myself because there wasn't much literature on how to actually set up a J-Cot tool to file down, or as they call it, burnishing the pivots. So to burnish the pivots with a J-Cot, there was like almost nothing available. So I had to make it myself. Now, one thing I don't do is this little pallet fork here, I don't put this pallet fork into, there's a little tiny pallet fork, see if this, there we go. I don't put this pallet fork into the lighter fluid, because those little jewels you see on the end of the fork, those are shellacked in place, and the lighter fluid will loosen the shellac, and then your jewels will fall out, and then I'd have to replace the jewels. And I know how to do that as well, but I don't want to have to. So all you do is use the Rodico and Pithwood to clean off the that part of the watch. So now I'm going to make sure I got another piece of watch paper here, and then I'm going to put that down here, and I'm going to jump into cleaning this plate here. And normally I got to put on a proper pair of little mini gloves. Alright, I'm back. So see these little babies? These are little partial gloves here, rubber gloves. And I got like hundreds of them. So here what I want to do, and I just don't want to make sure the oils from my hands get on the watch, because if that happens, then you end up with a bigger mess than you had in the first place. So what I'm doing here is I'm just cleaning off the movement with the lighter fluid and making sure all the jewels get attention, including the center jewel here. And then the plate is like exceptionally clean, so I don't really have to worry about that. But I'm not sure who cleaned the watch last, but they probably cleaned the plate. So, and if I get a little bit of lighter fluid and where the keying mechanism is, it's no big deal, because basically it'll evaporate really quickly. So, and none of these jewels are shellacked in, so I don't have to worry about the shellac part of the world here. So I'm doing a pretty thorough job cleaning these gears. I'm also cleaning where the mainspring is, because it requires you to have these out. So after I clean this, I'll show you what I do, but I basically peg out the holes. So, hey pig, that's my Al Bundy impersonation. So I basically peg out the holes so I don't have an issue with the with leftover grime. So, and here I'm just cleaning the center jewel here. I think that's the center one, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So this thing is highly jeweled. 21 jewels in this thing. So the 21 jewel salute. Da-da-da! Congratulations. Now some of these have caps on them too. Some of the jewels. So I got to make sure that if they're capped, that I unscrew the cap and take out the jewel. I'll show you how that works after. And then clean that individual jewel on the inside, because it's capped, which means there's a jewel on top of a jewel and covering another jewel. So it's the land of the jewel. Now if my name is Vern, I'd be Jules Vern. Jesus, I'm funny. Anyway, not so. So that's that, and then I got to grab this plate here because I'll clean this plate as well. So this one here I can just toss a whole friggin' plate inside the lighter fluid like that. And I just want to make sure where the barrel is, that's nice and clean, so I don't have any issues, and that is nice and clean. So these little finger cocks here are good because it prevents your hands from falling apart. So that's that there. So I'll just rest that there for a second. So that's clean as a whistle. And let me see. So I might end up, I got to clean the balance in there as well. So let me have a look at that. So this is pith wood here. So I got a bunch of sticks of pith wood here. And this is it's like balsa basically, right? So you can jam oilers in there, screwdrivers, all kinds of stuff to clean off the movement. And so you use pith wood, and there's a blower. So you got to make sure once you put the movement together that that it's free from all little particles of dust. So that's what I typically do. So what I'll do is, you'll see, is I'll grab a gear, right? I'll show you how I do this. So I grab a gear like this, and then all you do is jam the end into the pith wood like that. So you're cleaning up the end of the gear. This mat I have is pretty clean too. So, and then after I clean the gear, I put it back onto the watchmaker's paper so that it stays nice. So, and this gear here looks like it's got a bit of stuff on the end of it. So I take the Rodico, find myself a fairly clean end. This is, probably should be using brand new Rodico, but I think this is good. So jam that in there to take out any stuff. And this here is this gear. If I drop a gear, it's no big deal because they weigh nothing, right? It's like a fly falling 500 feet onto the ground. You never see a fly squished because it flew 500 feet onto the ground. So it has to do with the ability of the fly to accelerate, and because the fly will reach terminal velocity because of its weight, which means that the thickness of the air is not allowing it to go any faster, then it can't possibly hit the ground with enough speed to cause damage. So there we go. So that gear is nice and clean, and then I get the center gear here. So, and this looks like it's nice and clean as well. But again, never forget to jab the damn thing in pith wood, because if the one time you forget is the one time that won't work properly. So, and this here little gear here is a safety pinion too. It actually unscrews. So if you accidentally turn the watt or release the mainspring, then the power goes into this little tiny gear and it unscrews. And so that's the safety pinion. So that's those gears there. And then I've got these plates, look like they're nicely dried out there. So what I do now is I've got to make sure all the jewel holes are clean. So I'm going to get myself a nice sharp piece of wood here, and it's not a toothpick, it's a different kind of wood. So just hang on, I'll be back in a second. Alright, this wood is called pegwood, and it's also not named after Peggy Bundy, like, here's Peg, I think the youngin' needs to go out and discover the world. Peg, hey Peg. Anyway, so what I do with this is I have to sharpen the end of one of these pieces here, and I'll sharpen it up sharp enough to go into the holes of the jewels. So I'll be there, it's sharp as heck. So I'm going to touch the edge of this, which shouldn't be too hard on my hands. So, and then I'm going to peg out the jewel holes nicely. So you don't want to push too hard, because if you do, you end up you could end up popping the jewel out, which is not recommended. So I peg these holes out. And then later on probably don't need to do it, but I've got a USB microscope that I bought from China, or China as Donald Trump would say. It's going to be great, it's going to be great, it's going to be excellent. It's going to be from China, it's going to be wonderful, you're really going to like it. It's going to be the best, the biggest, from China. Anyway, that's my Donald Trump impersonation. So I'm pegging out these jewel holes, and I can see that the end of the pegwood kind of conforms to the size of the hole once I'm finished. And you can't leave any leftover pegwood in there because you will screw up the movement. So this little bugger has a plate on it, and then on the inside it's got a hole here. But I'm going to have to unscrew that to actually take out that jewel and to properly oil it and put it back in place. So there's no other way of doing that. These jewels stay where they are. They don't need you don't need to unscrew any of these. This one has a cap. Looks like it's got a cap on it too. These all look like these two look like they've got caps on them, which means I got to take out the cap, take out the jewel, yada yada yada, and then clean it. So you just get this one here, and so that plate is good. And then I have to actually peg out the bottom plate, so I'm not going to videotape all my pegging. You also have to make sure that the barrel, the hole for the barrel is nice and clean as well, because that's kind of friction on friction for the barrel. So I received a little bit of dirt there that I've gathered, and that's after I cleaned it, so just always a little bit of leftover that might come off. So you have to make sure it's nice and clean, right? Like that. And while I have this little bugger out, I may want to take a piece of cloth here, and I already have some cleaning stuff on this cloth, and sometimes I'll just shine up the surface of this a bit to make sure that just so it looks good, because a good looking movement is better than an ugly movement. I'm not talking about other movements either, I'm talking about the movement. So that's nice and clean. So I'll put this back where the screws are and move the lighter fluid out of the way a bit, and then I can put this one back as well. But I'm probably going to have to take a really close look at these jewels to make sure that I think they're capped, which gives them 21. That's why, which is a pain in the arse, as they say, but an evil necessity to oil them. So what I have is a really close eye loop here where I can actually look at the jewels. I'm going to have a look at those to see it. Now, one method to see if it's capped or not is I take some Rodico here, because sometimes it's hard to tell. Push it into the jewel hole like this, right, which also gets rid of anything that might be stuck there. And then you look at the Rodico and you say, okay, can I see a little tiny indentation for the jewel hole? And the answer is yes, so which means that jewel ain't capped, and this one isn't, and this one isn't. So I think we're all good here. And I typically will tap around here too to pick up any small pieces of anything that might be remaining in the movement, because like I said before, the slightest little hole, the slightest little piece of dust, and it's screwed. So yeah, no, those aren't capped jewels, so that's good. So that's that part, and then this part here, I don't believe these are capped either. I think there's like one of them that's capped. No, these are fine. That's not capped. This one might be capped. So I think these ones here, these ones are capped here. So I think these two jewels here, yeah, I don't know, I think they're capped. These are ones right there. So, but again, like I said, they wouldn't be capped on this side obviously, because that's the side where the pivot has got to go through. So there ain't no cap in here. And then I can tell really, and I know this one is capped for sure, because they typically cap these ones here, and that just sandwiches the oil between the jewel and where the pivot is. So let me just go down on this one here to see if there's, and I think these are capped. I don't know why they capped them, but they are. Yeah, that one is not capped, but I think these two right here are capped, which means I got to unscrew those, push them out, oil them, and then push them back in again. which is tricky stuff, as they say. So we'll get at that in a second. So maybe I'll videotape that, so if I screw it up, you can see. Just hang on a sec. Now I have to make sure the memory's going. I believe I've pegged these holes out already, but I'm just going to make sure I've pegged them out here. So there's no issues remaining. This one needs to be pegged out. You can actually see a little bit of something on that one. And then this one is capped, but I'll peg out the jewel hole anyway. So yeah, that is one small hole in there. Yeah, that's nice and clean actually. It's always an option whether you want to remove these or not. So there's an alignment issue too. There could be an alignment issue, but anyway, I'm getting better at this, so there shouldn't be any alignment issues. So I'm going to take out one of those jewels and have a look at it. Now, this is like minuscule kind of work, so bear with me, as they say. So to do that, I need a really small screwdriver. I'm taking off these finger cocks too. I'll hold the edges of the thing, and I'm going to see if I can zoom in a bit. But I got to turn this off for a second, or pause it, or do something. No, the heck with it. I got to get right up, really close to this thing, and I'm going to do the cap that's on the side of the balance. All right, so these screws are coming out nicely. The other thing is, what I don't want to do is scratch the gold fittings. So these are so slippery. So far I'm okay. I haven't scratched anything. So, but I can see the sun coming up and going down. So it's just like very difficult to remove these screws. There's one. And what I do with these, because I've lost screws before and it really pisses me off. So what I typically do with this, let me move all this stuff out of the way so I got plenty of elbow room, is I will pick the screw up with the Rodico so I don't lose it, like that, and then I'll put the screw maybe on the paper here so it stays where I can see it, and then I have to take the other screw out. So, and I would do this if I were actually if I were replacing a jewel on the watch, I'd have to do all this stuff as well. So, and this is what I do, but this is like really fine cleaning here. So most jewelers won't go down to this level. Even if they're cleaning your pocket watch, they'll be like, clean. So there, I've got these out now, and now I have to remove this movement here. So what you typically do is you press it out. So I should be able to press it out with the back end of a piece of pegwood, which is the proper way of doing it. So I got to make sure I have the back end of a piece of pegwood. So, and I have to make sure it fits in the over the jewel hole. There we go. So I just pushed that out with this little piece of wood, and just let me just take that over the side. And I'm going to start the film again. I'm going to zoom in and just so you can see how small this